So here we go. This is the family tree that then my father has done from Annie's notes. So if we look at here is Annie. Oh, come on, focus. Here we go. So here's Annie, who wrote the I Remember, and here is her great aunt. So her great aunt Mary, who told us the family history and is the person who gave Annie her I Remember. Now, these are all the people in our family, and there's quite a lot of people that we've managed to trace back. We've traced back as far as Mary's grandparents, who are the first members, and as far back as we can go, which is Richard Scarlett and Hannah Ely, and the date is 1724, so that's as far back as we go with the Scarlett line. So now I'm going to try and show you, but there isn't really any Anne Scarletts on this family tree. There's only Annie, who was also known as Anne, and my grandmother, who was Anne Scarlett. And then this lady up here, who is related to us, how is she again? She is so she is Annie's great aunt, but her dates don't match with the ring. So there's no one who died in 1844 called Anne. However, we do have a lot of Jameses. We have one James up here, who's the old James, he died a bachelor. And then we have who we sort of know as the original James, who married. And then he had a son who was known as Old Jim. Then he had a son called James, who was known as Young Jim. And then he had a son called James, also known as Jack. Then he had a son known as Jimmy or Jamie, and he is my grandmother's eldest brother. So we have a lot of Jameses, but we don't really have any Annes, which is very confusing to us, as this ring was made for her and has been passed down, but she is not mentioned anywhere. But however, we did have a lead, so I am going to move on to my slide 4, as we had this lead from what was written down. So this is Richard, who is original James's older brother. It's written here that he lived in Thornbury, and he had 5 children. I don't know if you can see very faintly. So Aunt Annie, wrote that they all died of consumption, but she never wrote down any of their names or when they died, so it's very confusing to us. And in hopes of finding this Anne Scarlett and trying to discover more about it, my father went to Thornbury and wanted to discover if he could find anything, and luckily he found a grave. He found a grave that had 5 Scarletts, who are the 5 children that went missing. So here's Richard again. So here's original James up here and all the other Jameses. This is the new family tree that my father's made. So here we go. Here's James, and here's his brother Richard. And here are his 5 children. And here is Anne, who died in 1844. So here she is. This is the original Anne Scarlett, who the ring was made for, and who we have pieces of her hair still. So here she is, and this is how it all sort of fits into the family. So here everyone is, and Annie's, so as you can see, Annie is here. This is Annie, and here's our Mary. And the original George Scott and Mary Ricketts and all that. So here they all are. And the most logical person, the most logical James to have made the ring is this James. This is old Jim. Now, I'm going to move on to slide 5 now. I'm going to move on to slide 5 about old Jim.